A black family moves into a quiet suburb, only to face threats and hostility. One neighbor, Tom, paints "Go Home" on their fence, unaware they're the new landlords. What happens next changes the neighborhood forever. But let's start from the beginning. The Jefferson family. Marcus, a determined 35-year-old IT professional. Alicia, a resourceful 33-year-old freelance designer. And their bright, curious 10-year-old daughter, Lily, had finally achieved their dream of homeownership. The cozy suburban home they purchased boasted a large yard framed by blooming hedges and was nestled in a neighborhood celebrated for its family-friendly parks and excellent schools. After years of meticulous saving and sacrifices, this home symbolized the fresh start they had longed for. Their initial days in the new house were filled with the sounds of unpacking and laughter as they imagined the future. Lily playing in the yard, hosting neighborhood barbecues, and finally, planting roots in a welcoming community. But the warm vision quickly began to sour. The Jeffersons soon felt the weight of unspoken hostility. Neighbors barely waved or acknowledged them. Even more unsettling was Tom Peterson, a burly, middle-aged man who seemed to go out of his way to express his displeasure. His intense stares and exaggerated lawn-mowing sessions near their property line sent an unmistakable message of disapproval. Determined not to let the tension disrupt their joy, Marcus and Alicia encouraged Lily to focus on decorating her new room and exploring the backyard. They refused to engage with the negativity and instead chose to demonstrate kindness and resilience. However, the hostility escalated. Late one evening, Marcus returned from work to a devastating sight. Graffiti scrawled in harsh white paint across their backyard fence. "Go home." The words struck like a physical blow. Marcus stood frozen, his breath catching in his throat. He quickly called Alicia, who gasped in shock as she joined him. Their daughter Lily, hearing the commotion, hurried outside, her wide eyes locking on the hateful words. "Why don't they want us here, Dad?" Lily asked, her voice trembling. Marcus felt a surge of anger, but swallowed it down, crouching to meet her gaze. "Because sometimes people fear what they don't understand," he said softly, his voice steady despite the lump in his throat. "But this is our home, Lily. We belong here just as much as anyone else." The next morning, as the sun cast a golden glow over their backyard, Marcus and Alicia stood side by side, scrubbing away the hateful graffiti from their fence. The harsh strokes of the words "Go home" were stubborn, but they attacked the task with quiet determination, refusing to let the malicious message linger any longer than necessary. Lily, still confused by the previous night's events, peered out of her bedroom window, watching her parents. As Marcus rinsed off the last of the paint, he noticed movement out of the corner of his eye. Tom Peterson stood smugly at his property line, arms crossed, his posture exuding arrogance. His smirk was unmistakable. "You're wasting your time. You don't belong here," Tom sneered, his voice dripping with contempt. "This neighborhood doesn't need people like you dragging it down." Alicia froze, her grip tightening on the scrub brush. Rage burned in her chest, but she straightened her back and met Tom's glare with unwavering composure. "We worked hard for this home," she said firmly, her voice steady. "Just like everyone else here. What's your problem?" Tom chuckled, a cruel, dismissive sound. "Worked hard? Sure. Just pack up before someone makes you leave." Marcus, sensing Alicia's anger rising, stepped between them. "Alicia, let's finish up," he said calmly, placing a hand on her shoulder and guiding her away before the confrontation escalated further. Tom lingered for a moment, clearly pleased with himself, before retreating to his own yard. That evening, the Jeffersons gathered in their living room, their faces lit by the warm glow of a table lamp. Despite the tension in the air, they shared a quiet sense of solidarity. "We're not going anywhere," Marcus said firmly, his voice filled with conviction. "This is our home." Alicia and Lily nodded, drawing strength from Marcus's resolve. "So what's the plan, Dad?" Lily asked, her small voice cutting through the silence. Marcus leaned forward, his expression thoughtful. "It's time to handle this differently. Tom doesn't know who he's dealing with. We'll show him, and everyone else, that we're here to stay." A week later, Marcus stood in his backyard, meticulously arranging the tables and chairs for the barbecue he and Alicia had planned. The scent of marinated chicken and sizzling burgers wafted through the air, mingling with the laughter of Lily as she darted through the yard, helping where she could. Despite the tension of recent days, Marcus and Alicia remained determined to turn things around and set a tone of positivity for their new community. As neighbors began to trickle in, some approached hesitantly, while others offered polite smiles and introductions. Marcus and Alicia greeted each guest warmly, chatting and making small talk as they passed around drinks and appetizers. The hum of conversation grew, and for a brief moment, it felt as though they had succeeded in breaking down some of the invisible barriers. But then Tom Peterson appeared, uninvited and unmistakable. He lounged against a fence post, a beer in hand, smirking as he surveyed the gathering. His presence felt like a dark cloud over the event, but Marcus and Alicia refused to let it dampen their spirits. As the party reached its peak, Marcus clinked a glass to get everyone's attention. The buzz of conversation died down, and all eyes turned toward him. With Alicia at his side, her hand in his, Marcus began. "I want to thank everyone for coming today. We know starting fresh in a new neighborhood isn't always easy, but we're excited to get to know each of you." A murmur of polite agreement rippled through the crowd, but Marcus wasn't finished. "And there's something else I'd like to share," he continued, his tone steady. "We're not just your new neighbors. We're also the new landlords of this community. That's right. We recently acquired this entire block of rental properties." The revelation hit like a lightning bolt. A wave of surprise swept over the crowd, and Tom, caught mid-sip, spat out his drink. "You're lying," he barked, his face reddening. Marcus calmly pulled out the documents. "Here's the proof," he said, holding them up for all to see. "We're not going anywhere. This is our home, and we want it to be a place where everyone feels welcome." Tom's pale face said it all. The balance of power had shifted, and the Jeffersons stood firmly in their rightful place. Tom stormed out of the barbecue that night, his face flushed with humiliation. His rapid departure left a tense silence in his wake, but Marcus and Alicia carried on, mingling with their neighbors and reinforcing their message of community and belonging. The barbecue, despite its rocky moments, felt like a turning point. In the weeks that followed, the Jeffersons noticed subtle yet meaningful shifts in the neighborhood. Some neighbors, perhaps shamed by the public reveal of the Jeffersons' ownership, stopped avoiding eye contact and even offered tentative apologies for their earlier coldness. A few even brought over small welcome gifts, baked goods, potted plants, or handwritten notes of thanks for hosting the event. But not everyone embraced change so easily. Tom Peterson remained a glaring holdout, avoiding any direct interaction with the Jeffersons and continuing to glare at them from his yard. His resentment seemed to fester, and while he no longer openly confronted them, the tension lingered. Then, one crisp autumn evening, there was an unexpected knock at the Jeffersons' door. Marcus opened it to find Tom standing on the porch. His shoulders slumped, his usual brash confidence replaced by an air of reluctant humility. "Look," Tom began, his voice quieter than Marcus had ever heard it. "I messed up. I've been going through some things, family stuff, financial stress. but that doesn't excuse how I acted. I'm sorry." For a moment, Marcus said nothing, studying the man before him. He could see sincerity in Tom's eyes, but also a flicker of pride that resisted full vulnerability. After a long pause, Marcus replied, "Change starts with accountability, Tom. If you're sincere, you can show us through your actions." Though hesitant, the Jeffersons chose to give him a chance. Over the following weeks, Tom began to make amends. He joined neighborhood cleanup efforts, contributed to community projects, and, in an act that surprised everyone, helped repair the Jeffersons' fence, where the hateful graffiti had once been scrawled. While not every neighbor's attitude transformed, the Jeffersons' grace and resilience inspired a gradual shift in the community. Slowly, their home became more than just a refuge. It became a symbol of progress and the possibility of bridging divides.